Hi, everyone. Today I am going to talk with a friend of mine, Cathy Himlin. She has just released a book called The Rejected Parent, and it's about parental alienation. And that is one of the hardest things that parents go through. I can say that honestly, and the pain that I've seen in my clients when their children are turned against them by a narcissist, and the poisoning and the lying. It's a hard journey, but Kathy's new book is we're going to talk about it because it's talking about what you can do and what not to do, and how there's another, not version of what's happening here in our cases of narcissists turning them against you, but what the kid's going on in their head. Why are they making this decision? Are they healing? Are they in this place? Let's go meet Kathy because I think you're really going to love what we're going to talk about. This is Tracy Malone from narcissistabusesupport.com. If you are struggling with this, if you are with a narcissist, co-parenting, or trying to figure out what to do during your divorce, because co-parenting is coming, I can coach you and help you. And all of my information is on my website, which is down below, and it is narcissistabusesupport.com. Let's go meet Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Welcome to my show. I'm so excited to have you.
Hi, it's really exciting to be here with you too.
You just launched a book on May 1st, right? It's May 7th now. So before we start talking about our topic, can you share a little bit about the book? Because I think it's going to be an amazing resource for so many parents.
Sure. It's called The Rejected Parent. Rebuild your relationship with your child during and after a divorce or custody dispute. It is all about when I sit with people in my practice and in my consulting practice who have been rejected or estranged from their child, and I work with people that have kids under 18, so they're minors. Um, I figured out that it's really important to work with a parent who could be showing up in a way they don't realize it, and that they actually could have a hand in why that child's being rejected. It's not about the co-parent. Though the co-parent could be doing something, sure,
Mhm.
but they're doing stuff too. So they're emotionally dysregulated, they're having a tough time, they're in the fight of their lives, and their kid doesn't want to see them. And that's got to be awful, and it is awful. It's so traumatic for them. So what I do is I recognize the pain that they're going through, the things that contribute to why they're in the situation they're in emotionally, and the ways that maybe even they're contributing to the rejection. And I haven't sit down with one person that doesn't. It's on a continuum or spectrum. It could be a little bit, it could be a lot, but they don't realize that when you show up defensive, angry, frustrated, despondent, scared with your kid, when you finally get a time to have with your kid and you spend that time lecturing them about how you're owed a relationship with them, how they should be with you because you're the parent, or how much you miss them and how it's been making you cry all the time. That kind of thing pushes children away. And so I go through a whole list of those things and with examples. And with kids, I even talk about how kids contribute to the situation because they've got their own thing. They're trying to figure this out. And sometimes, there's just stuff that they do. And you'll ask me questions and get into it. I'm like, sit here and tell you everything. But I just want it to be a place where they can understand why this is happening. There's so many reasons why, and then giving them tools to possibly create a reattachment with their children, reconnect with their children when they're given the opportunity. Because many of the people I see and I've worked with haven't seen their kids for weeks, months, or years. So that's my book.
It's going to help so many parents. I even have several in mind right now that I'm going to go tell them about. You made a little point there is maybe everyone's got a little bit of accountability in how they're reacting to this, right? And in my world, with a sort of narcissistic, person directing the show, they are causing reactive abuse in the other parent, but they don't realize they're doing it, right? I mean, it's you're responding to what they're doing, but that, as you said, could be also hurting the children, and you are just trying to protect them. But I'm not saying a little bit of accountability, but there's a chance for mistakes that parents don't even see. And so, I have so many clients that have had alienation in their divorce and co-parenting life, and the pain is so great. The pain of those who have actually lost them is like losing a child, like losing an arm. It is something that, they don't understand. How could this happen? The person I loved turn and lie about me and say these horrible things and, be the Disneyland person and take them to places I can't afford because, whatever. It gets tied up. It creates a bigger ball inside of them that, again, you saying that I'm not blaming the targeted parent. I am saying that we have to heal both sides, right? That's the most important thing. So tell me some of the common reasons that a child rejects a parent in this kind of situation.
There's quite a few. One of them is, well, it depends on their developmental age, but I see this all the way through teenagers. So I guess it's just with any kid. They tend to think in black and white, sort of like narcissistic personality or the other personality disorders, but they're kids and it's developmentally appropriate. They have a hard time seeing things abstractly in grays, right? So they think we have a right person and a wrong person. Well, everybody knows, or most people know in life, that's not how life works, right? Everybody tends to contribute to a situation. So if they're thinking like that, they've got a right person, a right parent, and a wrong parent. And there's a variety of reasons why they'll pick the right parent. Sometimes the right parent is the parent that stayed in the family home, and the wrong parent is the parent who abandoned them and left the home. But wait a minute, parents are supposed to separate when they get a divorce. And so one parent usually moves out, or they both move out and sell the home. So this parent technically abandoned their kid, I guess, because they left the family home. So from the child's perspective, it was an abandonment. And that's a really big reason. So this happens in a lot of cases, even in with teenagers. Another one, I don't know how many you want me to list, but I'll
Keep
list a
going,
few.
keep going.
Another one is a child will just simple stuff like they'll stay with a person in the family home because that's where they grew up. Why would they want to go over to the other house? This is foreign. What, I have to be in a bunk bed with my brother or sister, or I'm going to be in an apartment when I was in this home with a yard near my school with my friends in the neighborhood. I want to stay here. I don't want to go over there. So they reject just on stuff like that. And when parents don't realize that's what's going on, there's ways to help children adjust and to transition so they will accept a new place with the other parent or with both parents. There's ways to help them adjust through that. But what happens is when they do something like that, and we've got a rejected parent over here, they're taking it personally, calling them disrespectful, and then that just fuels it, right? So they'll reject for that. I know there's so many other reasons that off the top. Oh, split. I'll say a third one. The other one is split loyalties, right? So they get all caught up in the emotionality of what's happened, even in a divorce that isn't high conflict. It's still emotional. It's a shift. So when they're with one parent, oh, I've got another one after this. Sorry, I know there's so many. They're all popping in my head because I this time I do not have notes in front of me. It's just that I do this all the time. Um, so they feel like if they go from this parent's home to this parent's home or show any type of happiness or wanting to see this other parent, that they're betraying this parent and they're going to make them feel bad and they don't want to make them feel bad, and then they start feeling that way with them and they don't want to make them feel bad, and then somehow they pick one and they just, so they're feeling this conflict inside of wanting to please both parents and not wanting to hurt them while their parents are being hurt. um oh, there's another one that was really good. Oh, this is one of my ones that always, like clockwork, happens the exact same way. This pattern is in the majority of my cases where you have one parent. This is the one when the rejected parent is probably saying that this person is alienating their co-parent, is alienating them from the child. Here's what happens. This isn't all alienation cases, descriptions of cases, but this is a very common one where this parent over here, who is right now the custodial or primary caretaker, has been the primary caretaker. The child is either just grieving. There's two reasons why this happens. There's more, but the two I'm going to talk about, they're either grieving the time that they were having with this parent. So when we go to a 50-50 custody split, This parent who had 80% physical time with this kid because they stayed in the home and this parent went to work is now having to lose 30 to 40% of time with this parent.
Mm.
Courts don't think about that. That's simple math, right? So if this kid doesn't want to leave this parent, they're used to them being the ones to make them breakfast, take them to school, pick them up from school, do homework with them, sleep with them, maybe depending on their age, put them to bed, all the things, because this parent wasn't physically available to do that as much because they're working,
Right.
right? Outside the home. So kids are like, what do you mean I can't see this parent anymore as much just because you guys are splitting up? I don't want to see this parent what they want as much. They want what they want is they want it the way it was. They don't want the change. They can't handle the change. And it any age they do that. And the other reason that I find really interesting is the parent over here, well-meaning, gets anxious, right? That both parents are in trauma, they're having their own reactions, their childhood traumas coming and bubbling up and impacting how they react to this whole situation. You've got the courts involved, attorneys, maybe even evaluators telling them what to do and all this. And this is really, really hard on them. So they start getting anxious. If like this is a case, this happens a lot. And then if they're anxious, the child looks at them being anxious. And on that day that they go to that new home, where the rejected parent is about to be a rejected parent, and the parent goes to them, okay, okay, if anything happens, call me. If anything's said, if they do anything to upset you, if you don't feel safe, they do this, but they do this not because they're alienating from this parent who's about to be rejected. They're doing this because of their own childhood trauma. Maybe their parents went through a divorce and it was bad for them, right? One of the parents wasn't nice to them, or maybe there was some high conflict between the two of them, and and it's usually a female that does this, not always, will think that maybe the co-parent's going to hurt the kid. Like they get this irrational thought in their head because they're so dysregulated. Their feelings are so off because they're in the middle of trauma. And anytime you're in a burning building, as my example, what do? All you're thinking about is the flames around you. You're not logically thinking. You don't even realize how you're reacting to your child. You're unhinged emotionally. So this kid picks up on this anxiety,
Mhm.
and then they feel anxious, but they don't know why. And
Mhm.
they're like, okay, is there something to be scared about at that other parent's house? But none of this is really conscious. None of it. It's
Mhm.
depending on the age. And they go over reluctantly. They may cry. They don't feel good. They get to this parent's house and they're shut down. They're not as interactive. They don't feel as safe. They're missing this parent over here. It's their first time over, and maybe it's the first month or two. And it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right because they are absorbing the feelings of this parent. No abuse, no domestic violence, no substance abuse. There is no reason for this kid to be afraid of this parent. This parent was less physically involved because they were working outside the home. That's it. That's it. There may or may not be other things, like maybe this parent wasn't as attentive. Maybe this parent wasn't as attached and acknowledging of their being as much, but they were busy working. So I'm not giving them a pass. So they go over here, and then this parent gets irritated because the kid doesn't act the same. And they're like, "What's wrong? Why are you your mom is telling you to do this. Your mom told you something. What?" And then they'll start doing something like that. You're being disrespectful. They get loud. They get bigger. They don't get abusive. They just get bigger and activated and triggered, right? Then the kid starts crying or goes off into their room. Maybe they call this parent on the phone and trigger this parent. Maybe that parent comes by the house that night with the other parent not knowing and picks the kid up because they're afraid something bad's happened or will happen, and
Mhm.
nothing happened. And even if that doesn't happen, the kid comes back, and then this parent sees that child dysregulated and anxious and scared and shut down. What happened? What did he do to you? Bingo. And there it is. And that's why that kid will never go back, or maybe not never, but won't want to go back because now they're scared. Now this loop has been closed,
Mhm.
this anxiety trauma loop of the mom or this parent's trauma loop has been, and it's been absorbed into the child, and now that's reality. And now the narrative is that parent isn't safe. That parent doesn't make me feel good. I feel scared over there. They're not very nice to me. They don't do what you do for me. I always feel good over here.
Mhm.
That's a big one.
Huge.
And that is not parental alienation, technically, in my book. because
Yeah.
that's not intentional.
Right.
That's
Right.
just the impact of a divorce on two people that are struggling to get through it and how the kid just absorbs everybody's feelings. Sorry, that was a lot.
That is not a lot. That was so powerful and well said. And you know, one thing in my world with my clients who have had some alienation is the lies. And what you just kind of highlighted was it a lie or was there concern because of A, B, C? Now, I am not saying that narcissists don't destroy the other parent in some situations and do lie and do attack and do turn the child mind against them for power and control. But I heard something in what you were saying that, it made my heart flutter to go, oh my God, again, am I doing something that I could fix? Not that I'm doing something that is wrong, but again, patterns in our life, childhood wounds, I've freaking got them. We're like, we go through these things and we act from a place of that's all we know. Right. And so to be that protective parent and be like, oh gosh, they're crying instead of going, they've got to go through this because everything's different and it's not a death situation that I've got to run over there tonight for. So thank you for that because it makes so much sense to me. And I want people to read your book. But how does a parent shield their children from this kind of thing happening and, protect what they're saying and not react or tell me how do they shield?
Oh,
What's the
there's
best
so
way?
much. Right. And I go into that, how you can take care of yourself as a parent. And I talk to they're not technically custodial, but the primary caretaking parent. I talk to them too, because what happens again, I want them to recognize one thing is they need to gain insight. Going into therapy, coaching, whatever it is that helps them to really understand their own personal reactiveness to a situation. How are they projecting? In other words, putting any of their feelings or their thoughts onto a child or the situation that really isn't happening, but it's their fears, it's their sense of insecurity, it's just their overwhelm from all these emotions. That's the first step, I think, is to really understand. And that's what I try to walk people through. So I give them all these examples to try to help them understand it may not be what you think. But sure, on the outside, this looked like an alienating thing, didn't it? Totally did. But the thing they need to do once they get some insight, and it's not like it's step one, step two, step three, it's just sort of at the same time if that's possible. And it's really hard for them because again, if you're in a burning building, what are you thinking of? How do you get out? There's no other thoughts. There's no other thought. So you've got to get out of the burning building piece of that reactivity that happens in a divorce and getting support from friends or family, doing things to take care of yourself, grounding yourself, getting active if you can. Some people can't, but there is ways to move for most people. Move your body, get that energy out of you. Do things like that to take care of yourself. And then recognize this that it may not be what you're perceiving. Things move very fast in a divorce or custody dispute. Court just like hyper speed, and you've got attorneys that'll magnify everything and ping everything up. Get curious about why your kid's doing what they're doing.
Hmm.
If they're not wanting to come over, ask them, is there anything that I can do to make you more comfortable at my house? Instead of saying, you're being disrespectful, you have to be here. The custody split is 50-50. You're going to be here. Da 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 da. you you're and then do that and then blame your co-parent. You can't do that. You've got to get curious with a kid and then try. The other key here is part of the reason why in these cases these parents get activated and anxious and it absorbs into the kids is because the fighting in the background is happening. If we could stop this litigation stuff, and not to sit here and try to dismantle family law court. But if we could stop all the fighting for a while, at least till custody's decided or something. I mean, I almost wish, I'm going to go on a tangent. I'm so sorry for a second. I almost wish that the court wouldn't be involved until the emotions were resolved, until
Mhm.
we could just calm things down first. Because if they're in this state, they do things to each other that's not good and is not in the best interest of the child, and that escalates. So if you've got a parent over here that's already feeling defensive, feeling like things aren't going the way they want it. And they start in the back end having their attorney write to this co parent's attorney. Or
Mhm.
they go on Talking Parents or Our Family Wizard, not to plug those different programs, the co-parenting programs. I don't have any stake in them. There's the ones I hear about. If they start, saying things, saying nasty things, jabbing their co-parent, what they're doing is they're escalating this anxiety. They're actually producing the thing that's infecting the kid. So they have to learn how to be settle down and be subtle. That's funny. Um, I just made up a word. And one of the people, and not to like plug Bill Eddy, but I mean Bill Eddy, and like I'm looking at one of his books is like, what is it?
Ear,
Biff.
Biff.
Biff, how ears, Biff, ears.
Or-
I said ears. It's around
No,
here
there's
somewhere.
two. I
Anyways,
got Biffs and ears. Oh, I got two Biffs and an
yes.
ear on my shelf.
Yes, they're on my shelf too. But anyways, I illustrate Biff. If you can follow his principles in Biff on how to treat your co-parent to take the emotionality out of it, the chances of alienation type behaviors that you're going to see are going to decrease because you're not scaring this co-parent into activating their kid to not want to be you. So if they could do that, if they could just go and I mentioned him briefly in my book, to just take the time to no matter what, I'll just say what Biff is because I said it. Brief, informative, friendly, and firm. If you can just respond, look up Bill Eddy's stuff. He's in the High Conflict Institute. He's great. He wrote the foreword to my book. You're gonna hold up his book.
I'm trying.
I have it right here.
Where is it?
I have all kinds of
Oh, I
stuff.
know. I taught a communication lesson. It's on that desk. You got the
This
co-parenting
one.
one. Yeah,
I got this one.
yeah.
So this one, I mean, it's fantastic. And sorry, I didn't mean to look up a bunch of people's books, but he um he really knows how to calm things down, and he is so calming. And if you ever get a chance to
I
talk to
love
him, I
it.
know he's lovely. He's just the most lovely man. So you just can't not feel calm around him. He's a model of what he teaches. He's so great. So those are the things. I mean, take care of yourself, get yourself grounded, get curious about the child, stop jumping to conclusions about what you think the co-parent's doing. Try to see if there's something you can help them adjust.
Mhm.
Maybe not jump into a 50-50 plan. Have a step-up plan that takes a while. Yeah, so the kid can adjust. It's not good for them to have to just fruit go from like 90% or 80% to 50-50. It doesn't work. And then be nice to your co-parent. No matter how nasty they are to you, be
Mhm.
nice to them. It doesn't mean that you're going to take abuse.
Mhm.
It just means that you don't add to the problem, because if you could show up grounded and centered at your co-parent, maybe they'll calm down.
Absolutely. Everything you said, I know your book's on the way, and I'm excited that it's coming. And it's gonna help so many parents. But you know, I feel like you're saying that the child's needs are overlooked in this
Yeah.
situation, where the parents are, doing their thing, and yet they're both not looking at how do we help the kid instead of it's them, it's them, it's them, and finger pointing. So how does someone like help them not overlook their needs? Like, what is one tip that you can say or two that are like, do this and pay attention to their needs or understanding them? Help me with that one.
I know I hate to go back to therapy or coaching, but I think that it's helpful, since you could go to someone who understands children's needs, go to someone who understands parenting in high conflict divorces, go to them and get their advice on what would be good for your child. What are the options? Like, try to get an outside perspective with someone who actually understands child development. I think that would be a thing to do. But a thing to do without doing that is just to sit down. And this is what's hard though, because they're in trauma. Again, the burning building and the burning buildings with their co-parents. So that's why they don't see their kids' needs. They're just kids, right? They don't have feelings. Do you know I
Mhm.
had a parent that said that?
Oh, I know.
And their
Sad.
parents and their feelings don't matter. They're resilient. Kids are resilient. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. I
Yikes.
have parents tell me that all the time. Kids are not fine.
No.
They're not fine.
And they
I
might
haven't met
cry
one that was.
because they don't even know the damage that's being done.
No.
Just as I did in growing up. I didn't know
Right.
that was damaging me. I didn't know that was creating X, Y, and Z in me that would make me repeat patterns. Like that's what everyone has to understand. You talked about the kids in therapy. And to me, I think if you're talking about this disruption of I'm on my block. This is all I know. My best friend lives 2 doors down. We play in the cul-de-sac and we do this till mom calls us in for dinner. And yet now another weird thing is coming into their life where they're going into therapy. How does that affect the child? I Obviously, if they get a good one, it could help them in many ways. But you and I were talking earlier that there's a lot of bad ones. So how does someone protect them in therapy? And what have you seen in that arena?
I think for parents, as far as protecting them with therapy, that you don't pick just any therapist just because they're on your panel. Um, as much as I understand the financial aspect of it, it's important to find someone that actually knows what they're doing. One, they understand child development and they've worked with children before. A child therapist would be great. There's people I know that start doing child therapy that's never had child therapy training. And people who understand divorce and custody dispute dynamics and the trauma that the child's in. If they can't understand trauma, they're
Hmm.
not a trauma therapist. They don't understand children. They don't understand divorce. That's the wrong therapist. They need to have somebody who is more informed, at least, of those things. That helps. And to also meet a therapist, I'll talk about how to pick a therapist. You can be with a therapist or for your child or even in family therapy for this situation if they allow you equal time to the co-parent. If you have an individual therapist for this child and all they're doing is talking to you or the co-parent, that's inappropriate. It's ethically inappropriate for that therapist to do that, assuming you have legal custody, of course. If everyone has legal custody, that's not the right therapist for you. And I've been seeing that rash of behavior happening in my community as well, which is really unfortunate because it just feeds into the dynamic of the divorce. It's another professional that's adding a layer of trauma into this family. So the way, kids could go into therapy, they don't always need to. It's the parents that need to take care of themselves. But if there's um parent-child issues, that needs to be addressed in family therapy, not family therapy where both parents are present, because I think that's a mistake in high conflict divorce. Because what's going to happen? The kids in the room,
It's
here's
more.
another adult, right? And they're picking up all this tension. Even if it's an amicable divorce, I don't care. In the beginning, it should be just between, well, it's not amicable if a child's rejecting a parent, the child and the parent that they're having a hard time with. And the
Mhm.
focus should be on that, not to cut out this parent, because this parent should be in the loop in separate parent consults. But the actual work in there should be, and it should only be, about the child's needs, the child's perspective and feelings, not about the child understanding the parent
Mhm.
and how disrespectful they've been being by not going to their house. I've had therapists in our community do that where they spend a lot of energy trying to get that child just understand how hard it is for your parent and how they can't see you anymore. That's traumatizing a child in therapy, and that's not acceptable. Don't let that happen to your kids. You need to have a plan. Find an attorney if you're having an attorney work with you that understands children and wants the best for them. I know a lot of minors counsel down in my area in San Diego area that will actually work with their adult clients. They also see adults too in separate cases, and they'll try to make sure that it's more child centered. They have that lens. Get an attorney that has that lens, that isn't just going to take your money and fight for you in court. That's not what this should be. It should be making decisions about what's in the best interest of your child. That may not be 50-50. And that's a thing I say all the time, which isn't very popular. That's an arbitrary number that gives these parents a slice the kid down the middle type plan. But what if this kid needs more of one parent or the other in this particular stage in their life?
Mhm.
Right? I know the judges have it mostly dialed down for toddlers.
Mhm.
They'll give the primary caretaker, usually the mother, more time, especially nursing mothers and stuff like that. But once they hit kindergarten, it's like, well, now it doesn't matter. Now we can do 50-50 right now. That
Mhm.
doesn't work. That doesn't work. So helping to do things that's in the child's best interests
Mhm.
and understanding that from a professional, and there's all kinds of things, but I hope that covered that because
Totally.
yeah,
Totally.
that's what you need to do. And if they focused on that, they wouldn't fight. Because if we're just like in my therapy, if I focus on my child client, I'm not biased with either. I could care less. I'm just focused on the best interest of the child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep it child centered and you won't fight as much. That's huge.
That would be a gift to the world if we
Yeah,
could get everyone through that lens, because it has to be child focused. And often, as you said, it's really not. For my clients, they often cannot find a child therapist months and months and months later. And then all of a sudden, oh, one's available, I'll take them, without the credentials that you were just talking about, and that sort of desperation and lack of enough of them, and certainly
right,
enough that are skilled. They don't know who's skilled or not, but all of a sudden, bing, I got the number and bingo, can I go now? And it might be the wrong person for you. So what you just shared with us is so important for parents to see, because everyone I know goes through that same dilemma. If I can't find anyone, oh, I guess they're good enough. I found someone who could see me 4 years later. It doesn't give them the opportunity to be selective, to make the choices, to ask the right questions, even if they don't even know what the questions are. But when they watch this video, they're going to hear them from you, right? And when they
yeah,
read your book, they're going to see, exactly what am I looking for, and how do I ease the kids' fears, and how do I rebuild them? How do I put all my energy, instead of the war in my client's case, onto how do we make these kids better together in some cases, to get to that point where, you know what, they might be the enemy to me, but they're still the other parent. And I have to be supportive to my children and not let them get involved in the parent issues. That's what I see so often is, well, your mother did this, your father did that, bah, 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 bah. They're terrible. They cheated on me. They did this. Kids don't need to know that. For a
right.
5-year-old to come up to you and go, Mommy, you cheated, and that's not very integritous. Like a 5-year-old, who said that, right? It's bringing in more trauma
Yeah,
to the children, and
yeah.
that's what's really bad.
And
Uh,
I can I add to that about the affairs and cheating and that stuff. I get it. I get the whole betrayed partner things. I used to do more couples therapy before and worked with many, and I understand the pain and sat in their pain of what it's like to receive that betrayal. However, when you think about it, because I just want to hammer this one, and I mean an adult, no time in a child's life, adult child, little child, ever should they ever know that the other parent had the affair. You know why? Because there's no positive benefit for them. I challenge you to think about that for those of you that think that it's okay to tell your kids that your partner cheated on you. What is it going to do positively for that child?
mhm. Right.
Nothing. And all it's going to do is turn them against that parent and pull them into in the middle of your pain and the pain of your marriage or your relationship. It does nothing. It just piles on more trauma onto your kid. So they should, as I think in a lot of ways, I know there's like this trend out there with parents, well, I'm going to tell my kid 100% and that 100% thing that I'm going to be honest and brutally honest so they know how life is. No, no, you're supposed to show up as a calming, centered, safe place to land when the world goes wrong around them. That's what they need from you, not for you to like expose them to trauma and all the potential things that can happen to them or the things that they have been hurting you. That's not what kids need. They need you to be a safe place.
And I love that we're talking about this, because I work with a lot of people facing that betrayal trauma, right? And how does it affect the children if they are now enveloped in the betrayal trauma, and in their own minds, whatever the other parent is telling them, they've lost trust in that parent if they're old enough to even understand what that means. But it's also, how does the betrayal trauma, when a child finds out, affect their perception of life? How does it
Sure.
change?
Well, the first thing it does is it breaks the trust with the other parent, or it makes them feel like the other parent is a bad person and they can't ever be with them. So there's that. That happens. But the thing that impacts them later on is that when they are you, everything you do right now in front of them, what you say to them, what you do with them, whatever in front of them, they are taking it in like a sponge. You're their model. If you talk to them about infidelity and how their parent did that, then now they have the model that a parent cheats on the other person, though they may grow up and pick a partner that cheats on them.
Mhm.
Or they may cheat on their partner because that's what happens. And it isn't a conscious thing. This is the model of what they see. This is the pattern you've given to them on the template for how to be as an adult. So highlighting this stuff is not healthy for them
No.
any more than, and I'm sorry for being crude, but any more than some cases I've been on where parents think they need to show children movies with rapes in them so they can make sure that the child never is in a situation, I know, never in a situation where they might be raped, to try to just pound it into them. Yeah, pound it into them. Love that. That this can happen in life, and here's what you need to do to protect yourself. No, that's not helpful. Teach your child how to be independent and not be influenced by another person so much that they don't have a self-esteem, that they get sucked into some sick dynamic with someone and end up being raped. And I'm not saying that rape is random also by criminals, by familiar people in a relationship, all this stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that when people are traumatized themselves, maybe they've been raped or molested, and then they try to make their kids just know what this is going to be like. So be very careful in life. That's traumatizing.
Putting
That
some
doesn't work.
fear in the
Yeah,
child.
you're just putting fear. And then they grow up afraid and not free to be themselves, but constricted into this box of this, the world is unsafe. And I was taught that, and there's no way to protect myself because this could happen at any moment. I've known kids that are afraid of being raped because they've been forced to watch these movies
Oh my,
as an educative life lesson thing.
that's like immersion mistake 101. Like, who
Yeah.
would ever
Yeah.
try to show them to learn from this by watching something? Like, why don't you just show them watching murders?
Yes.
It's not going to it's going to stigmatize them for
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And they might even have problems with intimacy from that point
They
forward.
did. Yeah. I've met people as I've been talking to adults. This is where I hear it from, not from the kids, but the adults.
Who
And they
had,
can't, they had a problem with intimacy. Intimacy, their first exposure to, they weren't watching a porn thing. They were watching like a movie that was really intense. But their first exposure to intimacy, sexual intimacy, was that movie. So now fast forward that 20 years or more, and they're with their first sexual partner and they can't, they don't feel safe. So their freedom of the natural sexual expression that's part of human nature got interrupted and just shut down and
yeah.
spoiled, basically. And now they have to go through trauma therapy because his parent was trying to help them and they ended up hurting them severely for their adult life.
It's scary. It's
Yeah.
scary. And again, there's no license to be a parent, and we
No.
do the best we can. And
Yes.
when parents have trauma, they often don't even know they are pushing it out and redoing the cycle. But what we have learned from you today is, I think, really life-changing for some of the people that I know I have. And I am not saying that a narcissist is not going in there like a bull in a china shop trying to convince the child that you're the devil's spawn. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I know it does. I've seen the
It
emails, I've
does.
seen the things, I've seen the damage.
I've
But
seen it too.
if there is anything that you can do to not let it get to warp speed 10 and go, I got to make this better for my kids. And as much as they're poking me, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to do the damage that, one damage is not as bad as two. And I will hold my end and do what I can to repair and love this child and not play into the game that is happening to their children and really be above it for their children. And as hard as that is, get your own therapy, get someone that's going to guide you because you're still in trauma from whatever's happening, but pushing it on your children, letting them know everything, it's just so not appropriate. And the damage that you will do, as Cathy just said, is gonna come up when they're teenagers. When they kiss their first boy, they're going to have like guttural reactions that aren't needed. It could have been prevented. So thank you. Is there anything that we missed today?
I don't know, we're ending on such a negative. No,
Ah,
can I just say
no.
this? Let me just say this just in case, because I feel bad I went down that tangent. What kids need is for us to just show up in their world
Uh-huh.
and to recognize and to be compassionate with their feelings and their perspective. And that is the thrust of my book that I get to, that if we could just, even if we don't like their narrative,
Mhm.
even though their narrative is probably inaccurate, because most kids are, because they're kids and their brains aren't fully developed yet. And they're not lying, by the way. Stop calling them lying. They're absorbing things from the other adults. They're not lying, they believe it. But what we need to do is we need to show up in their world. And so understand their feelings and their perspective. That goes so far, even in intact families, families that don't go through divorces or custody disputes. The number one thing I hear from middle school and teenagers is they're not being seen or heard, and their voice isn't even recognized or respected. It doesn't mean they call the shots, though. It just means they need to feel like they're understood. So that is big thing. Again, you need to be this nice, soft, cushy place for them to land while the world is falling apart, including the divorce or custody dispute. So they can come to you safely and you can just hold them emotionally or literally and see where they're coming from and try to help them adjust the best they can.
What a good close to take over the negative part that you were worried about. Oh no. I mean, the moral of the story is there's hope
Yeah,
and there are tactics and techniques and things that you can do to take your own inventory. And what am I doing? How am I, part of this? And could I stop that? Could we both talk about it, go to a therapist, talk about it, and agree together?
right.
This is bad for our kids and try to do it in a different, safer way. If we had that happening, boy, there'd be a lot less people on both our therapy sofas.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Kathy. How can people find you? And I know your book is now on Amazon, so let's repeat the Rejected Parent
I'll
book
show
name.
it. Can I show it? Here,
Yes,
here's the
please.
book. I don't know if you can see
Woo-hoo.
it all.
Love
It's
it.
so pretty. I always keep saying it's so pretty. I didn't do this. The publisher did this. It's The Rejected Parent. You can find me on himlinconsulting.com, and that's how you can contact me.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much for being a part of this today. I think it's going to
of
help so many
course.
people.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Hope you guys found that helpful. I know I learned a lot, and her book is on the way. It only came out a week ago, and her publisher's sending it to me. We met because we were both on a docu-series for Paramount Plus, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to meet her. She got all this information that will help my people as well." So check out her book if this is a topic that is your life. And I look forward to our next video. So hope this helped. Have a good day.